Dawn was barely brushing against the Manhattan skyline when the sound of a key scraping the lock jolted Marley Kensington awake. She had been sitting upright on the edge of their leather sofa for hours, her hands trembling around a mug of lukewarm chamomile tea she never drank. The apartment was still dark, except for the faint glow leaking in from Park Avenue, just enough to cast the outline of her husband's shadow as he walked in. Grayson Voss didn't look surprised to see her awake. If anything, he looked irritated, like her presence at 5:12 a.m. was an inconvenience. He loosened his tie with one aggressive tug, the scent of expensive cologne clinging to him. Except tonight, it wasn't his. It was floral, sweet, an unmistakable trace of someone else's perfume, someone who wasn't his wife. Marley felt her stomach twist, not from morning sickness, but from the truth settling in her bones. She had known he was distant. She had known the late nights weren't work emergencies. But knowing and seeing are two different kinds of pain. And tonight, she saw everything. She swallowed hard.
"Where were you?"
Grayson stopped in the middle of the living room, the city lights outlining the sharp angles of his face. His eyes were cold, flat, like he had rehearsed this moment and no longer cared about pretending. "Don't start," he said.
"Not today."
Her voice cracked.
"Grayson, please. I just need to know."
He scoffed, tossing his jacket across the marble counter. "You always need something, don't you?" His gaze drifted to her, then down to her stomach. "And that is exactly why we need to fix this, before things get worse." A chill crawled down Marley's spine.
"What do you mean?"
He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if discussing business rather than her life. "You're not ready. I'm not ready. This is going to ruin everything we've built. So it's simple. We deal with it. Now." Her breath caught. Her vision blurred. She backed away until her hip hit the armrest of the sofa.
"Grayson, stop. I can't do this right now."
"You don't get to decide that," he snapped. The room fell silent.
All Molly could hear was her own heartbeat, the kind of frantic rhythm that warns you a storm has already begun, and escape might be the only way out. She stared at the man she once thought would protect her from the world, realizing he was the very thing she needed protection from. Then something inside her shifted, a quiet, trembling, but unmistakable clarity. She wouldn't stay, not another second. And as Grayson turned away, muttering about a meeting on the 47th floor later that morning, Marley made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Because before the sun fully rose over Park Avenue, she would be gone, and Grayson would find something on the marble counter that would shatter the illusion of control he thought he had. The apartment felt colder than usual after Grayson disappeared into the shower, humming like a man who had just come home from a celebration, not from breaking his wife's heart at dawn. Marley stood frozen in the middle of the living room, staring at the marble counter where his jacket lay crumpled. A single glint caught her eye. His phone screen lit up with a preview message from a name she didn't recognize. Blair D. "I miss you already. Last night was unforgettable." Her breath shattered in her lungs. She had suspected. She had feared. But now she knew. Marley reached for the counter to steady herself, her fingertips brushing the cold stone she once polished every Sunday morning while waiting for Grayson to come home from late meetings. It was almost laughable now, how she had believed him, defended him, tried to make their marriage look perfect when she was the only one trying. A wave of nausea hit her, sharper than any morning sickness. She ran to the bathroom, locking the door behind her.
As she crouched over the sink, her reflection in the mirror looked ghost-like. Pale skin, red eyes, dark circles from too many sleepless nights. She barely recognized the woman staring back, but she recognized the fear. She had lived with it for months, fear of upsetting Grayson, fear of losing him, fear of what her life would look like alone in a city as merciless as New York.
But now, another fear rose above the rest. What would he do if she stayed? Her hands instinctively covered her stomach. She wasn't showing yet, but she felt every second of the tiny life growing inside her. She didn't know what kind of mother she would become, but she knew exactly what kind of father Grayson would be. The thought cut through her chest. From outside the door, she heard him call, "Marley, don't be dramatic. We'll talk later." Talk. As if talking had ever helped. As if talking would ever change what he had already decided. She turned on the faucet to drown out his voice, letting the cold water run over her trembling hands. She imagined herself 2 months from now, 6 months, a year. Nothing got better in those images. Everything got worse. And suddenly, she knew her life would split in two. The life she had now, and the life she would have if she walked away. Her decision began forming, not loud, not bold, but steady. When the water finally stopped and she opened the door, her eyes were no longer pleading. They were preparing, because tonight wouldn't end the way Grayson expected. Something inside Marley had shifted, and the version of her he controlled was gone. When Grayson left for his morning meeting, still irritated, still careless, still unaware that Marley had seen the message, silence swallowed the apartment whole. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. This place used to feel like home. Now it felt like a cage with floor-to-ceiling windows and a stunning Park Avenue view. Marley walked through the living room slowly, touching objects she once cherished. The glass coffee table she picked out, the cream-colored rug she saved 3 months to buy, the framed photo from their honeymoon in Maui. Everything felt like props in a play she never auditioned for. Their apartment was immaculate, almost museum-like. Grayson demanded perfection, from the decor, from the schedule, from her. Not a mug out of place, not a cushion wrinkled. Marley used to think it meant he valued order. Now she knew it meant control. She moved to the kitchen, where the faint smell of his cologne still lingered. On the counter sat his Mont Blanc pen and a stack of documents he had been reviewing late the night before. She skimmed them, expecting the usual corporate jargon. But one sheet made her freeze. A letterhead from Voss Media Holdings. A projected financial loss. A confidential memo titled, "Pending Internal Investigation." Her heart stuttered. He hadn't told her anything. He never did. But this wasn't small. Her fingers trembled as she placed the papers back exactly how she found them. If Grayson was hiding something this big from his company, she realized something chilling. She knew too much without knowing anything at all. Her stomach tightened. The danger she sensed wasn't just emotional anymore. It was practical, tangible, real. She went to the bedroom, pulled open the dresser drawer, and found his second phone tucked beneath neatly folded shirts, the one he thought she didn't know about. It was locked, of course, but the sight of it was enough. 2 lives, 2 phones, 2 truths. None of them hers. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands flat against the duvet, feeling the weight of every sacrifice she'd made. She had given up job offers, friendships, dreams, everything, because she believed marriage meant partnership. But partnership requires honesty, and Grayson had none left to give.
As she inhaled shakily, her gaze drifted to her purse by the door. Inside was her wallet, an almost empty debit card, and the ultrasound photo she hadn't shown him yet. A life starting, a marriage dying. And somewhere between the two, Marley understood she only had one chance to save herself. She stood up, because before the sun set, she would make a choice Grayson never saw coming. And it would be the first decision she made for herself in years. By noon, the apartment felt too quiet, an eerie kind of quiet that settled deep beneath Marley's skin. She moved through the rooms like a ghost floating through someone else's life. Every corner reminded her of how much she had given up, and how much Grayson expected her to keep giving. The housekeeper, Sandra, arrived at her usual time, humming softly as she set her bag down. She was one of the few people in this penthouse who ever looked Marley in the eyes with genuine warmth. "You're home today," Sandra said gently, noticing the paleness in Marley's face. "Everything okay?" It was such a simple question, but it cracked something in her. She forced a smile. "Just tired." Sandra nodded, but her gaze lingered a second too long. Maybe she sensed the pressure building underneath Marley's calm exterior. Maybe she always had. But she didn't pry. Instead, she went about her routine, dusting the glass shelves, wiping the counters, straightening the sofa pillows with her usual meticulous care. When she opened the front hall closet, a slip of red fabric fell onto the floor. A dress, small, tight, sequined, not Marley's. Something inside her went cold. Sandra's brows lifted in surprise. "That's not yours, right?" Marley shook her head, swallowing the lump in her throat. "No, it's not. It must have been Blair's, or someone else's. Someone Grayson didn't even bother hiding anymore." Sandra hesitated, then quietly folded the dress and placed it back on the shelf. "You deserve better than this, honey." The words hit harder than they should have. As Sandra worked, Marley slipped into Grayson's home office, a space she was rarely allowed to be in. The air smelled faintly of cedar and toner, the sharp scent of control. His MacBook was closed, but the desk drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, she found a stack of envelopes, bank statements, attorney letters, things Grayson had kept hidden. One paper in particular stopped her heart. A notice of debt collection, addressed not to Grayson, but to both of them. He'd tied her legally to something she didn't even know existed. Her knees weakened. Not only was he unfaithful, he was dragging her into a financial storm she never signed up for. A storm that could take everything away from her. She folded the paper, slipped it into her pocket, and closed the drawer just as Sandra called from the living room. "Marley, there's someone at the door asking for you." Her chest tightened. No one ever came for her. Not here. Not in this life. She stepped into the hallway and froze when she saw who was waiting. Standing in the doorway was a man Marley had never seen before. Tall, sharply dressed in a navy coat that looked tailored on Fifth Avenue, holding a slim leather portfolio under one arm. His presence didn't match the chaos twisting inside her chest. Calm, composed, controlled. Everything her life wasn't. "Mrs. Kensington?" he asked politely. Marley hesitated. Nobody called her that. Not friends, not neighbors, not even Grayson. He preferred Marley, short, efficient, easy to dismiss. Hearing her full name felt strangely grounding. "Yes?" she managed. The man offered a respectful nod. "I'm Aaron Vale. I represent a client who asked me to deliver something to you. They were very insistent." Her pulse quickened.
Client? Deliver what?
Aaron held out the portfolio. "I'm not authorized to discuss the contents, ma'am, only to confirm it reaches your hands." Sandra lingered behind Marley, curiosity practically radiating off her.
Marley accepted the folder, noticing the weight of it, heavier than she expected, as if it carried more than papers.
"Have a good afternoon," Aaron said, stepping back toward the elevator. Marley frowned. "Wait, who sent—" But the elevator doors closed before she could finish. A messenger with no answers. She carried the portfolio to the dining table, sliding into a chair as Sandra returned to tidying, though her eyes kept darting toward Marley with quiet concern. Marley opened the folder slowly, expecting legal notices, financial threats, something tied to Grayson's secrets. But the first thing inside wasn't paperwork at all. It was a photograph. Her breath stopped. A hospital hallway, a stretcher, and Marley, 5 years younger, leaning over an injured stranger. She remembered the moment instantly. A rainy night near Columbus Circle. A man hit by a cyclist, bleeding, disoriented. She stayed with him until paramedics arrived. She never learned his name. She never thought of it again. Under the photo was a handwritten note. "You didn't know me then. You don't know me now.
But you changed my life once. Let me return the favor."
There was no signature. Marley blinked, heart pounding. The folder still had more inside, documents she hadn't checked yet. But suddenly, Sandra's voice broke through her thoughts.
Marley,
she whispered, eyes wide as she peered out the window.
I think you need to see this.
Marley rose, her fingers still clutching the unexplained photo, as she stepped toward the glass wall overlooking Park Avenue. Down below, pulling up to the curb in a sleek black Mercedes S-Class, was Grayson. And he wasn't alone. From the window, Marley watched the black Mercedes S-Class glide to a slow stop at the curb, sleek, polished, and unmistakably expensive. Grayson stepped out first, straightening his tie like a man preparing for a performance. Beside him, from the passenger seat, emerged a figure Marley recognized instantly. Blair Donovan. Her hair was pulled into a soft wave, her steps confident, in heels too high for daytime. Blair laughed at something Grayson said, touching his arm like she had practiced the gesture in a mirror. And maybe she had.
Everything about her looked intentional. Marley's fingers tightened around the mysterious photograph until the edges bent. Sandra let out a low breath.
Lord have mercy. He's bold.
Bold wasn't the word. Reckless, cruel, unconcerned. Grayson wasn't even hiding it anymore. Marley stepped back from the window, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. There had been a time she would have collapsed at a sight like this, but numbness had a way of hardening into something steadier, clearer. She placed the photograph and note on the table, though her mind kept drifting back to them. Someone remembered her. Someone she had helped. Someone who cared enough to find her after all these years. Meanwhile, the man she married couldn't even pretend to respect her. A knock rattled the door, sharp, impatient. Sandra whispered, "You don't have to open it." But Marley already knew she would. She didn't want Grayson entering with his spare key, storming in like he owned every inch of her life. Not anymore. When she opened the door, Grayson's expression shifted. Surprise, annoyance, calculation. Blair hovered behind him, pretending to check her phone, though her eyes flickered over everything. "Marley," Grayson said smoothly, "we need to talk." She crossed her arms. "Then talk." He didn't expect that. His jaw tightened. "Inside, privately." You made your privacy pretty public, Marley replied, flicking her gaze toward Blair. Blair stepped forward with a sympathetic smile that looked rehearsed. Marley, there's been a misunderstanding. No, Marley cut in. There hasn't. Grayson exhaled sharply, lowering his voice as if embarrassed. Stop being dramatic. We're adults. We can handle this like professionals. Professionals. As if their marriage was a business presentation he could dominate. Marley lifted her chin. Say whatever you came to say. Grayson's eyes hardened. You took something from my office. I want it back. Now. Cold fear slid through her, but only for a moment, because she suddenly realized he didn't know what she'd seen. He didn't know what she knew, and he had no idea someone else had reached her first. She stepped aside, letting him enter.
Blair followed, smug and curious. Marley closed the door behind them, and what happened next would flip the power in the room entirely. Grayson strode into the living room like he owned the air itself, scanning every surface with sharp, irritated eyes. Blair lingered behind him, pretending to admire the decor while really searching for clues. Marley could see it in the way her gaze darted across drawers, shelves, the dining table. What did you take? Grayson demanded, not wasting a second. Marley leaned casually against the counter, masking the tremor in her hands. Why don't you tell me what you think is missing? He scoffed. Don't play stupid. The documents in my office. They didn't just grow legs and walk off. Blair added softly. It's important, Marley. If you have anything, just turn it over. This doesn't need to get ugly. Marley's eyes narrowed. It's already ugly. A faint flush rose on Blair's cheeks, but she kept smiling. A PR smile, friendly, apologetic, entirely manufactured. Grayson stepped closer, lowering his voice. Those papers are confidential. They have nothing to do with you. Hand them over, and we can move on. Move on, just like that, as though he could erase everything he'd done by declaring it finished. Marley didn't budge. Funny. You never cared about my involvement before. Not in your work, not in your decisions, not in anything that mattered. Grayson's jaw clenched. This isn't about us. It's exactly about us, she said, her voice steady. All of it. His eyes flickered, annoyance, then calculation. I'm trying to help you, Marley. You have no idea what you're risking. But she did, more than he realized. Her fingers drifted to the pocket where the debt notice still rested. The truth pulsed like a bruise. He wasn't protecting her. He was protecting himself. Whatever those documents contained, whatever investigation was mentioned in that memo, Grayson was desperate enough to show up unannounced with his mistress in tow. Blair suddenly moved toward the dining table. What's this? She asked, reaching for the leather portfolio Aaron had delivered. Marley's heart jolted, but she stepped forward quickly, blocking Blair's hand with icy precision. Don't touch that. Blair blinked, startled. Grayson's eyes sharpened. What is that? Marley picked up the portfolio and held it against her chest. Something you don't get to see. Grayson's composure cracked. Marley, I'm not asking again. She met his stare without flinching. Then don't. The room thickened with tension, an invisible war line drawn between them. For the first time, Marley realized he wasn't in control anymore, and he felt it, too. Because his next words weren't commanding, they were panicked. Marley, who gave that to you? She didn't answer, because a quiet knock echoed from the front door, and the person standing on the other side would change everything.
The knock echoed through the apartment like a warning shot. Grayson stiffened. Blair turned pale beneath her perfect makeup. Marley felt her pulse flutter, unsure whether to be afraid or relieved. Sandra peeked from the hallway and whispered, "Should I get it?" Marley shook her head.
"I'll handle it." She took a breath and opened the door. Standing there was the last person she expected to see, Aaron Vale, the same sharply dressed man who had delivered the mysterious portfolio earlier. Except now, he didn't look polite or distant. His expression was urgent, almost protective. "Miss Kensington," he said quietly, "I apologize for returning so soon, but I was instructed to make sure you received a second document. Time sensitive." Grayson pushed forward. "Who the hell are you?" Aaron didn't even look at him. "This is not your conversation, Mr. Voss." That alone stunned Marley. No one ever talked to Grayson like that. Not investors, not co-workers, not even his own family. Grayson demanded, "Who sent you? And what documents are you giving my wife?" Aaron corrected him, calmly, but with pointed precision. "Your estranged wife." The word hit the room like a blow. Blair's eyes widened. "Wait, you're separated?" Grayson shot Marley a glare that begged her to stay silent. But she didn't owe him silence anymore. Aaron handed Marley a sealed envelope embossed with a symbol she didn't recognize.
"My client insists you read this today." She took it with trembling fingers. "Who is your client?" Aaron hesitated, just a flicker, before answering. "They'll reveal themselves soon." A non-answer, but one that carried weight. Grayson stepped between them. "Give me that." He reached for the envelope, but Aaron blocked him effortlessly. "This belongs solely to Ms. Kensington," Aaron said. "Interfering with it would be unwise." Grayson's nostrils flared. "What is this? Some scam? Some setup? Marley, don't be stupid." Aaron cut in, voice icy. "Mr. Voss, the only person endangering Ms. Kensington is you." The room fell silent. Marley stared at Aaron, trying to piece together the impossible timeline. How did this stranger know anything about her life? Why did he seem invested in protecting her? And what did the portfolio and this new envelope have to do with the man she once helped in a hospital hallway? Aaron stepped back toward the door. "Read it when you're alone.
Things are about to move quickly." He nodded once, almost respectfully, and left. Marley's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she looked down at the sealed envelope, its weight heavier than anything she'd held before. Grayson lunged toward her, fury twisting his face. "Marley, give it to me, now!" But she stepped away, clutching the envelope to her chest. Because deep in her gut, she knew whatever was inside this letter would destroy the world Grayson Voss had built. Marley backed away from Grayson, clutching the sealed envelope like a lifeline. She didn't trust him, not with words, not with documents, not with anything anymore. Sandra sensed the tension and quietly slipped into the kitchen, giving Marley space while pretending to wipe the counter. But her eyes stayed alert, watching in case Marley needed help. Grayson inhaled sharply, trying to regain control. "You need to give me that letter," he said, voice low but trembling with barely contained panic. "Whatever it is, it's misinformation. Someone's trying to manipulate you." Marley stared at him.
"Like you have been?" For the first time all morning, he flinched. Blair stepped forward, her tone syrupy sweet and perfectly fake. "Marley, look, you're overwhelmed. You shouldn't handle legal documents alone. Let us help." "Please stop talking," Marley said softly. and Blair's face hardened. Marley walked past both of them and sat at the dining table. Her hands shook as she broke the wax seal. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of high-grade paper with embossed edges. No letterhead, no signature. Just a message printed in elegant serif letters. Marley, your husband is under federal review for the misappropriation of corporate funds. He is using your name to shield himself from liability. You are in danger without legal protection. You helped save my life once. Let me help save yours now. E.M. E.M. Her breath caught. E.M. Elias Mercer? It couldn't be. They hadn't seen each other in years. He probably didn't even remember her name, except someone clearly did. Grayson snatched the paper from her hands before she could react. "What is this bullshit?" he snapped, scanning the page.
But his reaction didn't match outrage. It matched fear. Real fear.
"Is it true?" she whispered.
Of course not, he spat too quickly. This is a setup. Someone's trying to smear me before a promotion. Marley, you can't believe everything you see. But she remembered the memo in his drawer. The debt notice addressed to her. The burner phone. Blair's sudden involvement. And now a stranger warning her with information Grayson never intended her to know. Her insides twisted. Blair gently touched Grayson's arm. "Let's not panic. We can get ahead of this. We just need to see whatever else Marley was given." Her eyes slid toward the leather portfolio. Grayson followed her gaze. Then they both turned toward Marley, too quickly, too in sync. "Hand it over," Grayson said, voice breaking into something dark. "Now." But Marley rose from her chair, the portfolio already in her grasp. "No," she whispered. "This stays with me." Blair's smile disappeared, and Grayson stepped forward, just as the apartment door opened again, and the one person none of them expected walked inside. The apartment door swung open with a controlled force, not loud, but firm enough to silence everyone instantly. Marley turned first, her grip on the portfolio tightening. Standing in the doorway was Elias Mercer. Except this wasn't the dazed, injured man she once helped in a hospital hallway. This was the CEO of Mercer Developments, tall, composed, unmistakably powerful. His presence shifted the air itself, as if the temperature in the penthouse dropped a degree the moment he stepped inside. "Ms. Kensington," Elias said, his voice calm, steady, and respectful in a way Grayson never managed. "I believe the situation has escalated faster than anticipated." Grayson's face drained of color. "What the hell are you doing here?" Elias didn't even glance his way. "I'm here because Marley is in danger, and because you've been lying to her for far longer than she realizes." Blair tried to intercept, stepping forward with a PR-practiced smile. "Mr. Mercer, perhaps there's been some confusion. Marley is overwhelmed. We're all just trying to help her." Elias cut her off with a single look. "Ms. Donovan, you should be very careful about inserting yourself into matters that will soon become legal." Blair's smile faltered. Marley's heart thudded painfully. "Elias, why are you here? Why now?" He met her gaze with unmistakable sincerity. "Because someone tried to drag your name into an investigation that should have never involved you. And because you deserve to know the full truth." Grayson exploded. "This is insane! You have no right—" "I have every right," Elias replied, turning to face him fully. "When your actions jeopardize corporate integrity, federal funding, and public shareholders, you lose the luxury of privacy." Grayson blinked rapidly, too rapidly. Panic was starting to seep through the cracks of his confidence.
You dragged your wife into your financial mess, Elias continued. You used her signature without consent, and now, right before an internal audit, you're desperately trying to recover documents she accidentally discovered. Marley's breath caught. Accidentally? Elias nodded. You were never supposed to see those files, Marley.
He planned to dispose of them once he pinned liability on you.
The room froze. Even Blair's mask slipped. Marley took a step back, nausea rolling through her, not from fear, but from realization. Everything she suspected was nothing compared to what Elias just revealed. Grayson lunged forward. You don't know anything. She's my wife. No, Elias said sharply, shielding Marley with his presence alone. She's a witness. The word hit the air like a lightning strike, and before Marley could ask what that meant, Elias opened the remaining documents in the portfolio, and the first page made Grayson's knees buckle. The document Elias revealed wasn't complicated. It wasn't pages of legal jargon or financial spreadsheets. It was a single sheet, stamped and notarized, with 2 signatures at the bottom. One was Grayson's. The other was Marley's. Except she had never seen it before. Her heart lurched as she leaned closer. It was an authorization form, one allowing Grayson Voss to transfer liability for millions in misappropriated funds to his spouse if an internal audit occurred. Her name.
Her forged signature. Her life on the line. Marley staggered back, gripping the edge of the dining table.
I never signed this. I never even saw this.
Elias nodded. I know. That's why I'm here. Grayson's face flushed a violent shade, then drained to white.
This isn't real. It's a fake. Mercer planted this.
Enough! Elias's voice cracked like a whip. Your attorney has already confessed. He provided this file after federal agents questioned him about document tampering. Blair's eyes snapped to Grayson.
You told me everything was under control.
Grayson hissed, "Shut up." But Blair wasn't listening. She grabbed the document, scanning it with shaking hands.
You forged her signature? And didn't think it would come out?
He stepped toward her, furious. You don't talk to me like, don't you dare touch her, Elias said sharply, positioning himself between them before Grayson could get close. Marley stared at the page again, her stomach twisting. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't betrayal. This was endangerment. A deliberate trap. Her voice trembled.
You were going to pin everything on me.
Grayson opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His silence said everything. Blair swallowed hard. You told me she'd be fine. You said she was naive, that she wouldn't cause trouble. Marley felt the words like razor blades. Naive, disposable, collateral. Elias closed the portfolio. Marley, you need to leave this apartment immediately. You're not safe here. Grayson erupted. She's my wife. She isn't going anywhere. Marley lifted her chin, something fierce rising inside her. You lost the right to control me the moment you forged my name. Elias looked at her, really looked at her, with a quiet strength she hadn't felt in years. I can take you somewhere secure, and someone is already waiting to speak with you. Grayson froze. Who? Elias's expression shifted, subtle but lethal. Federal investigators. The color drained completely from Grayson's face, and before anyone could speak, the building's front desk called upstairs with a message. The agents had already arrived. The phone call from the front desk echoed through the apartment like a sentence being handed down. Ms. Kensington, Federal agents are requesting access to your unit. Grayson went rigid, his breath catching with a sound that wasn't anger this time. It was fear. Real fear. Blair pressed a hand to her mouth. They're here already? Elias stayed perfectly calm. They move quickly when a crime involves corporate funds and forged signatures. Grayson spun toward Marley as if she could save him. You called them, didn't you? You set me up! Marley stared at him, stunned. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even know any of this existed until today. You're lying, he barked, panic clawing into his voice. Elias stepped between them again, unwavering. She's telling the truth. They came because your attorney cooperated after being presented with evidence. Evidence you created yourself. Grayson's face twisted. This is all blown out of proportion. Marley, think about what this will do to us, our future, our family. Our family, she repeated, voice trembling with something almost like disbelief. You weren't thinking about family when you tried to make me your scapegoat. Blair backed away from Grayson slowly, as if watching a dangerous animal cornered. You told me you had this handled, she whispered. You told me she'd never talk. I swear to God, Blair, shut up, Grayson hissed. Elias glanced toward the door. A firm knock rattled it again. Agents, a voice called from outside. Open the door, please. Sandra hurried out of sight, muttering prayers under her breath. Elias placed a steady hand on Marley's shoulder. You don't have to be afraid. They aren't here for you. They're here to protect you. Marley tightened her hold on the portfolio. What do I do? You step aside, Elias said quietly, and let the truth do what it does best. Grayson lunged for the documents, desperation replacing dignity. Give them to me. If they see those, it's over. Marley moved faster than she thought possible, slipping behind Elias, placing the portfolio out of Grayson's reach. It's already over, she said softly. Elias opened the door. 2 federal agents stepped inside, dark suits, badges, unreadable expressions. Grayson tried to speak, but his voice cracked before forming a word. Mr. Voss, one agent said, we need to ask you some questions regarding financial misconduct and document alteration. Grayson staggered back like he'd been struck. Ms. Kensington, the second agent said gently, we'll need a statement from you as well. Not today, but soon. Marley nodded, her chest tight, but for the first time, not with fear. With freedom. But as the agents escorted Grayson toward the elevator, Blair whispered something that made Marley's blood run cold. You don't know the whole story yet. He wasn't the only one involved. Blair's words echoed long after the elevator doors closed behind Grayson and the federal agents. He wasn't the only one involved.
Marley felt her pulse spike, her fingers instinctively curling around the back of a dining chair. Elias stepped forward slightly, positioning himself in front of her, a subtle shield she didn't know she needed until now. What do you mean? Marley asked, her voice low, steady, despite the storm building inside her. Blair hesitated, not out of guilt, but calculation. Blair Donovan never spoke without weighing the value of every word. Finally, she crossed her arms, leaning against the marble counter as though this were a casual conversation rather than the unraveling of Marley's entire life. Grayson didn't forge that signature alone, Blair said. Someone else facilitated the process. Someone he trusted more than anyone. Marley searched her face. His attorney? Blair shook her head slowly. No. Someone much closer. A chill seeped into Marley's bones. Who? Blair's gaze softened, not out of kindness, but pity.
Your father-in-law. Marley's breath hitched. Mr. Voss, the impeccably polished man who always looked at her like she wasn't worthy of the family name.
The man who insisted Marley sign documents she never fully understood. The man who once told her Grayson was destined for greatness, and she should stay out of his way. Elias exhaled sharply, confirming what Marley feared. It makes sense. Voss Sr. has been manipulating the company's finances for years. Grayson inherited more than a position. He inherited a mess. Blair pushed off the counter. And your signature was the solution. A clean way out. You were never supposed to find out. Marley felt the room tilt for a moment. The betrayal doubled, sharpened, expanded. It hadn't just been her husband. It was the entire Voss legacy. They didn't just underestimate her. They intended to sacrifice her. Elias watched her carefully. Marley, you need to understand, this wasn't personal to them. Oh, it was personal, she whispered. They chose me because they thought I was powerless. Blair didn't deny it. Footsteps from the hallway made Sandra reappear, clutching a steaming mug of tea. Her eyes widened when she sensed the shift in the air. Everything all right? No, Marley murmured. But it will be. Blair grabbed her purse. I should go before the agents decide they want to talk to me too. Elias stepped aside but kept his eyes on her the entire time. Blair slipped out without another word. Marley turned to Elias. What happens now? Elias met her gaze, something resolute forming behind his calm exterior. Now, you fight back with the truth, and you won't be doing it alone. But before Marley could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, containing a photo that made her blood run cold. The message came from an unknown number, no name, no profile picture, just a gray bubble glowing on Marley's cracked phone screen. Her thumb hesitated before opening it, but curiosity overpowered fear. The photo loaded slowly, and when it finally sharpened, Marley felt her knees weaken. It was a picture of her, taken through the window from outside the apartment just minutes ago. She stood exactly where the photographer stood now, near the dining table, holding the leather portfolio. In the background, Elias and Blair were visible mid-conversation. The timestamp was clear. 7 minutes earlier. Someone was watching them, someone close enough to see everything. Elias stepped forward immediately. Let me see. She handed him the phone. His jaw clenched the moment he registered the angle. This wasn't taken from the street. This was taken from your building, same floor, possibly the opposite unit. Sandra gasped. You mean someone's spying on her? Elias kept scanning the image, his expression tightening. Not just spying, documenting, tracking. Whoever sent this wants you to know they're watching. Marley felt a coldness spread across her spine. Why me? What do they want? Elias shook his head. Not you specifically. The documents you're holding. Anyone tied to this investigation is a threat to them. Blair, halfway toward the door, froze at his words. Wait, you think Voss Sr. is involved in this? You think he's watching her? Elias didn't soften his answer. It's possible. He's desperate enough to protect the empire he built. Marley holding evidence makes her inconvenient. Blair looked rattled for the first time.
Then we should all get out of here. Marley's phone buzzed again. A second photo. This time, it wasn't of her. It was of Grayson, handcuffed in the lobby. Agents surrounding him as he yelled at someone off camera. A caption followed. He was the first. He won't be the last. Marley's stomach dropped. Why are they sending this to me? Elias exhaled slowly. Because you're next on their list of people they need to intimidate. Sandra's voice trembled. Should I call security? The police? No, Elias said firmly. We're leaving. Right now. Marley grabbed the portfolio, the envelope, and her bag. Where are we going? To a safe place, Elias answered. Somewhere Voss Sr. can't reach. You need protection until the investigators question you. Blair swallowed hard. And what about me? Elias studied her for a long moment. Depends on whether you want to stay loyal to the Voss name or save yourself. But before Blair could answer, a loud knock rattled the apartment door, followed by a man's voice Marley recognized instantly, even through the steel.
The knock came again, louder, sharper, filled with the kind of authority that made Marley's stomach twist. Then the voice followed. Marley, open the door, now! It wasn't Grayson. It wasn't an agent. It wasn't anyone she expected. It was Richard Voss, Grayson's father. The very man Blair had just accused of orchestrating the financial scheme. Sandra whispered a prayer under her breath. Blair froze, her entire body going rigid. Elias moved instantly, stepping between Marley and the door like a shield. Do not open that, Elias said, his voice low but unyielding. Marley's pulse hammered. He can't come in unless I let him. Elias's jaw tightened. His presence alone is a problem. He shouldn't know agents were here. He shouldn't know anything that happened in this apartment. Someone tipped him off. Everyone looked at Blair. She lifted her hands defensively. Don't look at me. I didn't call him. He terrifies me. The knock came a third time, harder. Marley, I'm not leaving. We need to talk about Grayson. Elias leaned close, whispering, He's not here for a conversation. He's here to silence you before you become a liability. Marley gripped the portfolio against her chest, her breathing shallow. What if he forces his way in? He won't, Elias said, but you need to step back. As if on cue, Richard's voice sharpened. I know you have something that belongs to this family. Open this door or I notify building security. The irony stung. Security was the last thing she needed. Blair swallowed hard. He's not going to walk away, Marley. He's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. Elias signaled Sandra to move into the kitchen for safety. Then he raised his voice enough for Richard to hear. Mr. Voss, Marley will not be speaking with you. We're leaving. Silence. Then a chilling response. Mercer, I should have known you'd interfere. This isn't your fight. Oh, it is, Elias said, his tone like steel. Because you made it my responsibility the moment you involved Marley in financial fraud. The hallway went dead quiet. Then Richard said with calculated menace, If she walks out that door with you, her life, as she knows it, is over. Marley felt something snap inside her, not fear, not panic, but resolve. She stepped forward beside Elias and raised her voice. It already is. Elias placed a hand on her back, guiding her toward the bedroom. Pack a bag. We're leaving in 60 seconds. Marley hurried down the hall, only to stop dead in her tracks. Because standing in her bedroom doorway was someone she never thought she'd see again. Marley stopped so abruptly, her breath caught in her throat. Standing in the doorway of her bedroom, hands raised slightly, as if afraid to scare her, was her older brother, Noah Kensington. The same brother who disappeared from her life 4 years ago. The same brother who cut ties after spiraling into debt and shame, leaving Marley to fend for herself. The same brother she thought she had lost forever. Noah?
she whispered, disbelief cracking her voice. He looked nothing like the man she remembered. Thinner, wearier.
Haunted in the way only someone living on the edge of survival could be. But his eyes, those familiar Kensington eyes, held something she had never seen in him before. Regret. "I shouldn't be here," Noah said quietly. "But I heard your name, involved in something dangerous. I came as fast as I could." She blinked back, shock. "How did you even get in here?" "I followed the agents," he admitted, scratching his jaw. "Probably not my smartest move." Elias appeared behind Marley instantly, all instinct and caution. "Who is he?" "My brother," she said, voice thin with disbelief. "I thought you left New York." "I did." Noah lowered his gaze. "But trouble has a way of finding me, even when I'm not looking for it." Marley felt a rush of emotions, hurt, confusion, a flicker of hope, colliding all at once. "Why now, Noah? You vanished. You didn't call. You didn't—" Her voice cracked. "You left me alone." Noah's shoulders sagged. "I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I swear, Marley, I'm here now because someone contacted me. Someone told me you were in danger. Someone who knew I'd come." Elias stepped forward sharply. "Who contacted you?" Noah looked between them, hesitating. "A man. Said his name was—" Before he could finish, a loud crash erupted from the living room, something heavy slamming against the front door, followed by Richard Voss's furious voice. "Marley! You are making a mistake. Open this door immediately!" Elias cursed under his breath. "We're out of time." Noah grabbed Marley's bag from the bed. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm helping you get out." She stared at him, this broken, unexpected piece of her past suddenly returning to shield her. "Can I trust you?" she whispered. His voice didn't waver. "With your life." Elias moved beside them. "There's a service elevator at the end of the hall. If we move now, we can avoid him." But then Marley's phone buzzed again, another unknown number. A text, one sentence. "They know you're leaving." She felt the blood drain from her face, just as the power in the apartment flickered, then went completely dark. The blackout swallowed the penthouse in an instant. 1 second the apartment was glowing with Park Avenue daylight. The next, it was plunged into darkness thick enough to choke on. Marley froze. The silence felt unnatural, too precise to be accidental. Then, from the hallway, Richard Voss's voice boomed again. "Marley, don't make this worse. Open the door." Noah grabbed her wrist. "We need to move, now." Elias pulled out his phone, the screen casting a faint blue glow over his sharp features. "Service elevator, end of the hall. We stick together." Sandra whispered shakily, "Lord protect us," clutching the edge of the counter. Marley turned to her. "Sandra, go into the pantry and lock the door. Don't come out until security arrives." Sandra nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. Blair stood there trembling, arms wrapped around herself. "They're shutting off the power. That means they're serious. He's serious." Elias's tone sharpened. "Blair, if you want to walk out of here alive, you follow my lead and don't say a word." Noah opened Marley's bag, shoved the essential documents inside, and handed it to her.
"Stay between us." Marley's heartbeat pounded in her ears, her breath shaking as they navigated the dark hallway. The only light came from Elias's phone guiding the way. Behind them, Richard continued pounding on the door, each hit louder than the last. The frame groaned under the impact. "He's going to break in," Marley whispered. He won't get the chance, Elias said, increasing his pace. They reached the end of the hall. Elias pushed open the metal door to the service area. It screeched loudly, echoing like a warning signal through the darkness. Inside, the narrow corridor was dimly lit by emergency strips along the floor. Noah stepped in first, scanning both directions. "All clear," he said. Elias herded Marley forward. Blair followed reluctantly, constantly glancing behind them. They were halfway down the corridor when Marley's phone buzzed again. Another text. Same unknown number. "You should have opened the door when he asked." Her breath hitched. "Someone's watching us right now." Elias grabbed the phone from her hand, his expression turning lethal. "Keep moving. Don't look back." They reached the service elevator. Noah hit the call button repeatedly, the light flickering weakly. "Hurry," Marley urged. "Please." A distant mechanical groan traveled down the shaft. The elevator was coming, but then footsteps, fast, heavy, getting closer. Noah went pale. "Someone's in the service hall." Elias stepped in front of Marley again, jaw tight. From around the corner, a figure emerged, and Marley felt the blood drain from her body when she recognized who it was. The figure rounded the corner, footsteps echoing off the narrow service corridor walls. Marley's breath caught, her pulse hammering painfully against her ribs. It wasn't Richard Voss. It wasn't building security. It wasn't federal agents. It was Blair. But not the Blair who had been trembling in the apartment minutes earlier. This Blair walked with purpose, her heels clicking like she owned the hallway, not fearing it. A phone shone in her hand, lighting her face with an eerie glow. And for the first time since Marley met her, Blair's expression wasn't smug. It was emptied of all pretense.
"No," Noah muttered under his breath.
"This doesn't feel right." Elias stepped in front of Marley instinctively. "Blair, stop." She did, but only after reaching the center of the corridor, far enough to block their escape path. "You shouldn't have run," Blair said softly, almost regretfully. "It complicates everything." Marley shook her head, trying to understand. "Blair, what are you doing? You're scared of Richard. You said so yourself." Blair gave a faint laugh, too calm, too controlled. "I said what I needed to say to stay in the room." Elias's jaw tightened. "So you did call him?" "Yes," Blair replied unapologetically. Richard needed to know the agents were involved. He needed to know Marley had evidence that could bury him. This family's survival depends on containing the damage. "By trapping me?" Marley whispered. Blair's eyes flicked to the portfolio tucked under Marley's arm. "You were never supposed to be part of this war." But once Grayson panicked, everything changed. Noah stepped forward, fists clenched. "Move. We're leaving." Blair shook her head. "You won't get far."
The stairwells are locked. The main elevators are disabled. The cameras are down. Richard isn't letting anyone leave this floor until he handles the situation. Marley's blood ran cold.
"Handles? How?"
Blair didn't answer immediately. She glanced down the hallway, listening. Elias caught the gesture and swore under his breath. "She's stalling." Blair's gaze softened, just barely, as she looked at Marley. "For what it's worth, I did try to warn you. You just didn't want to hear it." Noah moved in front of Marley. "We're done listening to you." Finally, the service elevator arrived with a metallic groan, doors sliding open behind Blair. Hope flickered in Marley's chest, until Blair raised her hand and showed them what she'd been holding. A small black control fob. She pressed a button. The elevator doors slammed shut. Then Blair whispered, "You're not leaving this floor."
Behind Marley, a second sound echoed, a deep mechanical lock engaging on the service corridor exit. They were trapped inside the dark hallway, with Blair no longer pretending to be on their side. For a moment, the narrow corridor felt too small to hold all four of them: Marley, Elias, Noah, and Blair, who now stood like a gatekeeper with the control fob dangling from her hand. Her earlier fear had vanished. In its place was cold resolve. "You don't understand what Richard is capable of," Blair said quietly. "He built this empire from nothing. He won't let a scandal destroy it, and he definitely won't let a designer from Brooklyn be the reason it collapses." Marley steadied her breath. "You helped him trap me. Why?" Blair tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because he promised to protect me. To protect all of us who've tied our careers to the Voss name." Elias stepped forward, voice razor-sharp. "Protection. He's sacrificing every pawn on the board, including you." For the first time, Blair's confidence flickered. A shadow of doubt passed through her eyes, but she pushed it away. "I didn't want it to come to this, but Richard is right. If Marley walks out with that portfolio, the fallout will destroy everyone connected to the company." Noah scoffed. "So your solution is what? Corner her in a hallway? Scare her until she drops the evidence?" Blair's jaw tightened. She was supposed to hand it over willingly. That was the plan. "Well," Marley said, lifting her chin, "your plan failed." Elias placed a hand on Marley's shoulder, grounding her. "Blair, listen very carefully. This isn't about corporate damage control anymore. Agents are here. Grayson is in custody. You're tampering with a potential witness escape route. You could face federal obstruction." Blair swallowed hard, but didn't lower the fob. "I'm not the one who started this war." "No," Marley said, stepping forward. "But you chose your side." Blair's voice cracked. "You think I wanted this? I followed Richard because he promised stability. After everything I survived growing up, stability is all I ever wanted." Something in Marley softened, but only for a moment. "Then you should have walked away while you had the chance." Noah jerked his head toward the opposite end of the corridor. "There's another service door past the laundry chute. We can run." Elias shook his head. "Not without power. Every lock on this floor is magnetized. Without electricity, we're sealed in." Blair exhaled shakily. "Richard is buying time. He's coming up the stairs right now." Marley felt her heartbeat spike. "Then we need a different exit." Elias's gaze drifted upward, toward the ceiling panels. "There is one." Noah frowned. "The ventilation shafts? Seriously?" "It's tight," Elias said, "but it leads to the mechanical room on 42. Before Marley could respond, heavy footsteps thundered up the stairwell just beyond the service door. Richard Voss had arrived. Blair whispered, "It's too late." But Elias grabbed Marley's hand, eyes blazing with resolve. "No," he said. "It's our only chance." And as Noah pushed a ladder beneath the ceiling panel, the service door handle began to turn. The service door burst open just as Noah shoved the last ceiling panel aside. Richard Voss stormed into the corridor, his face twisted with the fury of a man seeing his empire crumble in real time. His voice boomed through the narrow space. "Marley, do not go up there!" But Marley was already climbing the ladder, Elias steadying it with both hands. Richard lunged forward, grabbing the bottom rung, until Noah stepped between them, blocking his path. "You're not touching her," Noah growled. Richard sneered. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing." Noah's voice didn't waver. "Maybe, but I'm not nothing to her." Richard shoved him aside and reached for the ladder, but Blair suddenly grabbed his arm.
"Stop," she whispered. "It's over." Richard yanked free. "You betrayed us." "No," Blair murmured, tears rising in her eyes. "You betrayed everyone." Above, Marley pulled herself into the narrow ventilation shaft. Elias followed smoothly, then offered Noah his hand. Richard made one final leap toward the ladder, but Blair stepped in front of him, blocking his way with the courage of someone finally choosing herself over fear. Richard slapped the control fob in her hand. "Useless girl." Blair stared at him, eyes glassy. "I'm done being afraid of you." Elias pulled the ladder up into the shaft.
The metal panel slid shut just as Richard lunged again, his furious roar echoing below. The escape through the ventilation system was claustrophobic, slow, and terrifying. But with every foot they crawled, Marley felt something inside her shed. Fear. Helplessness. The old version of herself Grayson and Richard tried to bury. When they finally exited into the mechanical room on the 42nd floor, Elias helped Marley down first. "You did it," he said quietly. She shook her head. "We did." Sirens wailed far below. Agents flooded the building. Richard Voss was escorted out in handcuffs, screaming about power, legacy, betrayal. Blair surrendered herself calmly, providing a full statement, finally free of the man who controlled her. By sunset, Marley's name was cleared. Her testimony protected her. The forged documents became evidence. The Voss empire collapsed under its own corruption. And for the first time in years, Marley walked into a future that belonged only to her. Weeks later, she sat across from Elias at a quiet rooftop overlooking Central Park. He looked at her with the same steady warmth he'd carried since the moment he returned to her life. "You deserve peace, Marley," he said softly. "And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of that peace." Her heart steadied. She reached for his hand. "You already are." Below them, Manhattan glowed, not as the city that once broke her, but as the city where she rebuilt herself. And this time, nothing and no one would ever silence her again. So, our story has finally come to an end. And if you are still here, right now, reading these words, then something in Marley's journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. Maybe her fear reminded you of a moment you survived. Maybe her courage reminded you of the strength you didn't know you had. Or maybe, just maybe, her escape reminded you that walking away from what breaks you is not weakness. It's wisdom. You know, the Stoics have a line I love. If something is out of your control, let it go before it controls you. Marley learned that the hard way.
But she also learned another truth from Marcus Aurelius. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every obstacle, every betrayal, every dark corridor she crawled through, those weren't endings. They were directions. They led her back to herself. And maybe that's the real message for all of us. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve a life that doesn't dim your light. If this story gave you even a tiny moment of clarity, strength, or healing, then stay with us. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. You're not alone. Not here. Not tonight. And not ever in your journey forward. This story is a work of fiction, created purely for emotional reflection and entertainment. None of the characters, events, or situations are based on real people or real-life incidents. The purpose of this narrative is to explore themes of resilience, betrayal, healing,
and personal growth in a dramatic, cinematic way that resonates with viewers.
While the emotions and lessons in the story may feel familiar or relatable, everything you witnessed was shaped through creative storytelling, not real events. Stories like this help us look at our own lives with a bit more clarity, reminding us that we all face struggles, choices, and turning points. If this narrative spoke to you, let it be a safe space for insight, not something taken as factual reporting. Thank you for watching with an open heart and understanding that this is fiction made for reflection.